Hello, hello. Good afternoon, Canada, USA, and beyond. Welcome everyone to Circuit Stream's XR Development with Unity course info session. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your busy days to join us here. My apologies for some background noise there. There's some renovations going on here in my building. Before I do kick things off, though, can you guys let me know in the chat on the right of your screen? Can everybody see me okay? Can everybody hear me okay? Is all good? Okay. Thank you, Liam. Thanks for letting me know. Dan, great to see you. Thanks for letting me know. Richard, awesome. Okay, everyone, let's kick things off here. Once again, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us. My name is Kyle. I'm on the education team here. I've got a couple of housekeeping items that I want to go over before we proceed with today's session. On the right of the screen, you guys have already discovered, so thank you very much, the chat tab. At the top of the chat tab on the right of your screen as well, you will notice that there's a questions tab as well. We would ask that if throughout the presentation you do have questions about our programs, the content today, anything that you'll be hearing from our guest speakers today, please paste those in the questions tab there. It helps keep us on track today, and it will allow us in the Q&A session to stay on top of those in an organized manner. I always love to ask this one too. For those of you who are located internationally, where is everybody tuning in from? We're a Canadian company. We're headquartered out west in Calgary, Alberta, but I myself am in Toronto, Ontario. So I'd love to know where you're all from. Hey, Steph, colleague, nice to see you out west. Tammy's in California. We got Josh in the US as well. Seattle, Natalie, great to see you again. Dan's in LA as well. Wow, West Coast is popular. Tech Hub, no kidding. Terrence, great to see you. Glad you could make it out. Awesome. I do want to provide a reminder to everybody. This will be recorded. So if you've got an important call, if it's supper time, something happens, the boss is on your case about something, you will get the recording sent to you. So if you do have to jump off, no worries about it. Okay, let's talk about a brief agenda here really quickly as well. So I'm going to be our moderator for today's session. I'm going to provide a brief introduction to the company as well as to our special guest today. Following that, we are going to have a very classic fireside chat with both Jerry and our special guest, Matt DeLallo, who will be discussing his journey from student to professional XR designer today. Before we wrap up, I'm going to walk you through our portfolio of academic offerings, as well as the logistics of getting started with CircuitStream. Finally, at the very end of the presentation, we are going to have an in-depth Q&A session with both Jerry and Matt in addition to myself. So once again, please, if you do have questions, add those to the questions tab so we can keep track of those. Okay, without further ado, let's get going. My name is Kyle. I am on the education team here, as I've mentioned already. I bring about 3 years of professional experience spanning across the sports industry as well as the technology industry. I come from a legal background. I'm really passionate about negotiation. And a fun fact about myself that I always love to share. When I was working in professional sports here in Toronto, I got to take part in the Toronto Raptors NBA championship celebrations. So yes, I am an NBA champion. No, I cannot shoot a basketball to save my life. Let's continue here. Let's talk about the origins of VR and AR. I hope that GIF on the left there is coming across clearly. What we have seen is that as VR and AR have accelerated in terms of growth, this transformation was mainly driven and accelerated by the gaming and the entertainment industries. And on screen here, you can see clips from two of my favorite games, those being Beat Saber, channel your inner Jedi, slashing those music notes, and also Super Hot right there, tons of fun where you can freeze the game. But moving on, what we've seen in the past few years, and I think this contributes to the acceleration and the immense growth in the industry generally, is the use of professional applications. So again, even here on screen, you can see a training simulation, somebody learning about different components of the brain, somebody learning how to go about identifying what they see in a health use case, which of course, given everything that's going on, this is very, very timely. Again, moving on, we are also seeing some emerging use cases. Things like next level UX, UI design on the left there, and even 3D model overlaying, digital design, so on and so forth. Tons of really, really cool use cases. So the takeaway, this is not just for gaming and entertainment anymore. The world is figuring out that there are millions upon millions of use cases for this technology. So how do we figure into the picture? What about us? So we were founded in 2015 when we noticed a gap in the personalized training and education space in the VR and AR industry. To date, we've trained over 35,000 students to help learn, build, and manage their very own VR and AR applications. We're coming together, a team of about 20 experts from all around the world, from different backgrounds, as we've discussed, to teach people the fundamental skills and best practices in the VR space. CircuitStream is also a Unity certified training partner, and training partners are approved based on their expertise, their focus on quality education, and their commitment to providing the highest level of training available today. Today, we offer a portfolio of different educational programs, teaching the very best practices of XR development and XR design to people of all skill levels. The XR Development with Unity course is our flagship training program, and it's also going to be the main course that we're highlighting today. Moving on, let's talk about one of our guest speakers here. So this is Jerry. Jerry's our head of education. He brings a wealth of experience spanning gaming, professional training, and so on in the VR industry. His background comes from game designs, and more recently, he's also studied computer science in a master's degree. Jerry joined us about a year ago. He was an instructor for us here. He also helps us on some of our professional projects. So he's going to be joining as our head of education to talk about, how we teach things, why we teach things, and who might benefit from our course. So without further ado, I'd like to invite Jerry right up on stage now so that we can dive into his background. So Jerry, if you're out there, I'd love to have you join us on stage. Oh, yeah, I just got a message from Jerry on the background saying he's having a bit of difficulty. Jerry, are you able to join? Awesome. You are. Awesome.
So
I was concerned there.
I'm sorry.
That's okay. That's okay. Jerry, thanks for joining us this afternoon. How are you doing? How's your day so far?
I'm doing good. Great. Quite hot here.
Jerry's from Brazil. He's all the way down south in Sao Paulo, so it makes sense. It's the middle of summer for you. Yep. Jerry, let's talk about your journey into XR. When did you first discover VR, AR? What interested you about it, and how did you find your start?
Right, great. So, my background is mostly in the gaming industry. So I started like more than 10 years ago, and I worked with the gaming industry most of the time. But at some point, like 4 or 5 years ago, here in Brazil, the need for VR, especially training for the industry, it was growing, and a couple of studios and a couple of institutes here started to looking for people who are interested in building VR and AR experiences. It was like in the very beginning, we didn't have access to lots of devices in there. So I was really interested about discovering how to build those things. I was super excited about like the possibility to be in virtual places, like make it possible to have a training without being on site. And then I started working with an institute that makes training, basically training. So we worked for the military, we worked for oil and gas and other industries here. So I started there discovering like the path to make VR when we didn't have like lots of SDKs and all those things. And it was a lot more harder that time than it is now, but it was already exciting.
That's awesome. So, talking about that acceleration and that growth, coming from the backgrounds that you were describing, how have you seen the industry transform? Like, I'm assuming in Brazil at the beginning, it would have been very difficult to get your hands on a VR headset. How has that changed over the years?
So the thing is, we didn't have lots of offers in there, like not lots of different headsets. It was like a limited amount. And as you said, it was not easy to have them here. As an individual, it was almost impossible. For companies that were working on big projects, they could like import those things. But what I see, the biggest slip in there, like the biggest change is how it's more accessible not only for companies and individuals, but for the developers as well. At the time, we didn't have like references, we didn't have good SDKs. Even like, well, if you would like to use a game engine with VR and AR, it was super challenge. We needed to write like things from scratch, communicate with the hardware directly in some cases. And nowadays it's completely changed. Like we have lots of tools that helps us to accelerate our development, so we can focus on the design, on the safety, on the utility of the application without needing to deal with the bits and bytes of the thing. So I think that's what changed. Those two perspectives. Like now we have a lot more support for the developers, and we also have more options in there. They're cheaper. Almost everyone have Oculus Quest out there or can buy one. So yeah, it changed. Like it's starting to get more popular and more accessible over the years. So that's what I think was the biggest change.
Very cool. Yeah, much more consumer friendly today, much more efficient, as you were saying, much more support, much more interest. It's really the perfect storm. On that subject, I am curious, how do you see VR and AR clashing with other emerging technologies? I know in the past you've hosted a workshop for us on AI and its use cases in Unity. How do you see the industry transforming as it matures?
Well, that's a really good question. Like one of the things that I think it's transforming is basically how accessible this thing is. Like if you think about like a couple of years ago, all of the devices that we had, they were super heavy. They needed like powerful computers, and you couldn't like just use them everywhere. Now we have a couple of devices that are light and they're cheap, that you can just move from one room to the other and still using them. So I think that it's still far from being able to use all the new technologies, such as you said, like AI and those things at full, because we are starting to have things that are user friendly. But I see like lots of companies, even Apple with the AR kit, for example, moving into artificial intelligence for recognizing objects, for example. So if I am using like a VR, not a VR, in this case, an AR headset, I can identify, for example, well, this thing is a person, this thing is a car, or something like that. And that uses artificial intelligence. So I think that those, we're starting to get more utilities as the devices get more user-friendly and the technology more powerful as well. So I think we are now in the point where we're making this widespread and user-friendly. Everyone is getting used to it, and we are learning how to develop like nice applications. And I think it's gonna take a couple more years until you have like the new technologies being integrated fully to it. So it's more like in the field of research right now. But there are lots of interesting things. Like Apple, they do have a computer vision library that you can just use in AR. For example, as I mentioned, we have like the new iPhones with the LiDAR, which making AR even more powerful right now as well. So I think that Apple just announced that they're going to be releasing a VR headset soon. So I think we are in this state of establishing like how people access the devices and how we develop compelling applications until you can actually integrate more powerful technologies and new technology in there. But they are walking more or less together.
Right. Very. Yeah. I mean, you're totally bang on, right? As soon as these big players, the Oculus Facebook merger, the writing was on the wall, right? Like it's just, how do we navigate the waters to get to this maturation, and how do we, as you suggested, do the research in a way that makes this consumer friendly, drives interest, and makes it more accessible. So exciting. Jared, I wanted to ask you, what interests you these days? As somebody with a wealth of experience who came and sort of built your skill set over years and years and years, what excites you these days? Sort of what's next for you? What are you working on? What drives your interest today?
Nice. That's a really good question. Like the majority of this time I have been working with AR and VR, but mostly VR. So I'm pretty fluent with VR. Like I know what takes to make a good VR application, and I'm super familiar with that. AR, it was I was never super thrilled about AR because I didn't feel like it was a good experience in the beginning. But now with all the new technologies that are coming, for example, how we have image recognition and other machine learning, image processing integrated to AR applications now. That's something super, super cool. Other than that, having the LiDAR, for example, I think that is transforming the way we make AR. So now I'm focusing more on understanding how I can make AR better, like better integrated with the environment, so people believe that's something. And I have been dedicating some time on learning more AR, because I think AR was underestimated up to now, because the technology was not powerful enough. Like, well, most of the things, of course, we have like the HoloLens, which is aware of the environments, but it's super expensive. It's not accessible to everyone, not lots of applications. But now with the environment awareness coming to devices, with mobile devices, starting with the iPhone, but I'm pretty sure it's going to be like in the next generation, probably in a lot more devices. I think it's going to transform the way we can develop AR. So I am super, super excited about the future of AR right now. We can integrate like environment awareness with machine learning to detect what I'm looking to, and we can make like super, super powerful applications in there. So this is in the AR workspace. In the VR workspace, one of the things that bothers me a lot is the lack of feedback, like tactile feedback and force feedback. This is something that makes the experience a lot poor, in my personal opinion. Like, well, if I grab a bottle like this in VR, I don't feel like I'm grabbing this, because I'm not actually holding anything, even though this is hand tracking. So I am, and all of the technologies that we have, like gloves and those things, they are not a lot, and they are hard to get. They are not super precise. So I have been working since the last year as a personal project on a cheap VR with VR hands, like VR gloves with force feedback, which has been a super challenge for me, because it deals with electronics and mechanics and those things that I'm not an expert in. So yeah, I would like to have like an accessible module that is like open source. People can just print in a 3D printer, buy a couple of electronic components, and have that working. So I'm trying to do that. Probably I won't be able to, but who knows?
It's so cool. Jerry, you are our head of education after all. So if you don't mind, I'd like to flip to the next slide here and take a look at our course schedule. So as somebody who's been teaching our 10-week course, our flagship program, I want to talk to you about the way that we lay it out. So given that this course is beginner friendly, can you share your thoughts on why we start with Unity and C# and how we delve into more foundational topics, and how a beginner might perceive these lessons in our program?
Sure. So this course, it's designed for beginners. Like, as you said, everyone is able to come here and learn a lot from the beginning. Like I don't know anything until I can fully develop an application either for VR and AR. So we just organize that in a progressive way. We start with Unity because that's the tool you're going to be using throughout your life if you don't decide to change engines. But there are fundamental concepts in there that you can apply to other engines or tools as well. So we start with the foundation, and then we move into the C#, because even though you are a designer, like you are a VR designer, or you don't want to be a programmer, you need to know a little bit of scripting so you can give life to your ideas. So it's like crucial to know how to program simple interactions. And if you are a programmer and you want to know more complex things, you can go into that route again as well. And then we progress by that with small projects. So it's like a project-based course. We are always developing something that you can apply. We teach the concepts, then you develop a small project, you see how it works. The instructors are always demonstrating and then giving you the chance to practice those new skills. And it goes until you have like a complex project in the end that you can use in your portfolio. And we also have like the 101s that go in parallel with the classes. So if we have like a very specific particular project, we can finally work with that project, not only with the more generic ones that we use in the class, but also what you want to build in the end. So that's basically how it goes, like from the very beginning until you're able to develop a complete application, either VR or AR.
That's spot on, and actually it leads me perfectly to my next question. You take a look. Sorry, if we could flip back to the. If we take a look, it doesn't really seem like this course favors one medium over another. VR over AR or vice versa. So as somebody who might be interested in one instead of the other, is it a lot like what you were saying about the difference between being an XR designer and an XR developer? It's important to understand the foundations of both, Awesome.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. Sorry, I was gonna say you go ahead. It sounds like you had a thought there.
No, I was just going to confirm that. Like as I said, a focus on fundamental skills. So what you learn in this course, you can apply to either VR or AR. Even though we have like examples that are more focused in one thing or the other, you're gonna be able to use everything that you learn to develop your own application, be it VR or AR, or even if you want to do something that is not VR or AR in the end, you know programming, you know Unity, you know the tools that are there, so you can just build wherever you want. Yep.
Awesome. Awesome. Okay, let's move on to the next subject here, because this is really interesting, and I think for a lot of the folks in the audience who might be considering learning with us, starting their journey, continuing their journey, these are some really important questions that we need to address. So Jared, what I want to ask you specifically at this point, beginner is a subjective term. No
Yep.
programming experience versus experience with HTML or JavaScript, or as you've said, a designer coming from a 2D background. How do you think that the varying levels of previous experience will change the experience for a student in our course? For example, if I'm a traditional 2D designer, I hate programming, I don't want to learn it. How would I go about learning this? Would this course be for me?
Yeah, definitely. So one of the things that I would say is, especially because we are in AR, like XR in general is quite a new field. Like we don't have lots of professionals out there. You need to know a little bit of everything if you want to get a job or if you want to get a career in this. Even though you don't want to be specialized in programming in the future, or if you don't want to be specialized in design in the future, you need to know how to communicate with the multidisciplinary team. So we what we're doing here is give you all of the tools that you need in order to be able to be part of this team. As I said, like as you said, beginner is quite like a vague term. We just assume that you don't need to have any special background. Like you don't need to know how to program. You don't need to have like built something VR or AR in the past. We just assume that you are starting from here, and we're gonna give you all of the tools that we need. And of course, this is gonna make like this is basically gonna open your mind to the industry to understand what is needed to build a VR and AR application, and you can communicate well with the team. I had a couple of students, still have a couple of students that are designers, like they don't want to become VR programmers, but they want to be able to hire, for example, or to collaborate, or they want to understand like how long it takes to make different things, or what is possible and what is not possible. They want to make a prototype and show to a developer and say, well, this is what I want in those terms. So basically, we need to have like this skill set, know a little bit of everything in this field. That's true for the gaming industry as well, for example, but for VR it's even more true because it's not that specialized. We're gonna be finding a job where you are like, well, I'm only the designer and I'm gonna tell how the application should look like. You cannot like express a 3D VR application in a piece of paper, for example. So you need to be comfortable with the tool to demonstrate what you want to achieve with the design that you are making. So yeah.
Amazing. No, that's super, super helpful. And folks in the audience, I've seen some questions about the content. I do want to let you know that I am going to talk about the logistics of the course in just a few moments. But just for now, getting some general insight from Jerry, I find super, super helpful. Jerry, last question for you, and then we'll bring you back on at the Q&A at the end there. We talked about at the very beginning how VR and AR is no longer just for gamers anymore. Is this the same in our course? Have you had the chance to work with some students building sort of unique prototypes, proof of concepts in the one-to-one lessons attached in our course? And if so, what kinds of things have you seen that you found interesting?
So actually the majority of our students, they are not building games. That's a fun thing. Like a couple of them are, but lots of them are not. So we have like students, for example, building training and simulation for the medical industry, where they're teaching how to give medication, like identify the correct medication and how to apply that. So they have like this VR training, which is safe. You don't need to train on real people because you are actually learning things. So we have that. We have students that are making like virtual presence applications, basically like multiplayer chat room where we can hang out, find people. especially now with COVID, where we cannot actually meet people out there. So they are building those kind of things. We have people in the making applications to teach people how to have like a better how to eat healthily, for example. There are like a wide variety of different projects. It's just basically whatever they want to do. We have like a couple of students making games as well, like rhythm games, a dodgeball game. So the sky's the limit. So everything that they want to build, we just support them and help them to build in there. But the majority of them are not building games. They are building like a sort. I have one student making a store, for example, like. They want people to go into the store and see the product like in VR, and they can buy it, add to the chart to the cart and just buy it. So there are a whole different projects out there.
Amazing. Jerry, that's super, super cool. I love to see and hear about all the cool things that students who have taken this program have built with us. I also want to say thank you so much for your time now. It's always great to connect with you. So folks, that's going to be it for Jerry for now, but we are going to invite him back on at the end of the presentation as well to talk about or to help with the Q&A session, pardon me. So we will have Jerry on in probably another 30 minutes if I had to predict. But for now, I would like to take this time to introduce our next speaker. Matt took our 10-week course with us back in 2019, if I'm not mistaken. Today, Matthew is a motion graphics and technical artist who specializes with virtual reality and augmented reality platforms. He has experience with a wide range of projects from mobile 360 VR documentaries, multiplayer, free roam VR experiences, and more. More recently, he has transitioned his career from a role at IBI Group, which is an architectural and engineering firm, to Lucky VR, makers of some of the world's most popular multiplayer VR experience, including PokerStars VR. We are going to drop Matt's portfolio link in the chat here in just a few minutes, and we can definitely send it out into the emails. So without further ado, I'd like to invite Matt on stage here. And just a fun fact, he and I just discovered this yesterday. We actually live in the same neighborhood. So in a non-COVID time, we would definitely be probably in an office together somewhere. So there's Matt. Thank you for joining us. Really appreciate it.
Sorry, my audio is not picking up. Can you say something, Kyle?
Yeah. Is that okay, Matt? We can hear you clearly.
1 second.
Oh shoot. Okay, let's take just a minute here.
Sorry, guys. I thought all of these technical issues were resolved yesterday.
All good. No worries at all. Just let me know. How's that? Any luck?
Sorry. I don't know what's going on. It doesn't want to actually pump the audio through my my headphones. So.
Okay. Well, we can hear you. The audience says that they can hear you too, which is good. We can see you.
If you want to actually just go and write it in the chat, I can probably just read it there, and okay. I guess maybe I'll just start my spiel. Yeah. Sorry about the technical issues, guys.
That's okay. We'll add it to the chat. So give me a second here. So I'm going to read it out loud, and then I'll put it in the chat as well.
Okay. Yeah, I can see that people are clearly writing in the chat. Okay. Yeah. So let's start with that question. How did I start in this? Basically, I actually come from a background of animation. So I worked in TV broadcast for quite a number of years, and then eventually got into understanding the 3D pipeline, and eventually ended up in interactive advertising. And it was in interactive advertising where I was introduced to, I guess, the modern day version of VR. I am familiar with it, back in like the late 90s, early 2000s, back when it was super clunky. But I was reintroduced back around the days of when I think the DK2 just came out. And I fell in love with it. It kind of reignited that passion for exploring, the possibilities of technology and what it can actually go and bring and immerse you in. And so ever since then, I kept pursuing it. I started at a place called Secret Location here in Toronto, which is the first company that won an Emmy for VR. And I worked on their, I can't remember what the horror movie was, but it was a 4D experience that was premiering at the San Diego Comic-Con. And ever since that, I kept chasing the technology. So I worked at a number of different places. I traveled a little bit around the world, giving or setting up VR experiences in places like Barcelona for MWC.
Nice.
That was our kind of big free roam multiplayer experience through Samsung, where we strapped basically motion capture gear on people and put the Gear VR on their heads and let them essentially be giant robots destroying a futuristic city. Fun little things like that. And then eventually I ended up in architecture, where I was the VR and AR specialist at IBI Group. And it was the first time that, it was definitely like a career change for me, as, I was kind of consulting on a number of big projects. And it was also where I really, saw the need to actually go and upgrade my skills to get more familiar with, like, I was familiar with Unity at that time, but I wasn't familiar with coding. I didn't have background in computer science or games or anything like that. And I saw a need to go and broaden my horizons, so to speak, with that. So while I was at IBI Group, I took the Circuit Stream 10-week course, and it opened up so many different possibilities for me, and it definitely brought a lot of career highlights, and and I ended up where I am today, which was working on a very interesting game. I never would have thought I would be working on a perpetual game like PokerStars VR. But it's not every day you get to say you go to an office meeting in a virtual casino, smoking cigars as we all talk about upcoming projects and things like that, and development schedules and things. But it's been quite a journey. But like I said, as I started to broaden my horizons by learning the more technical ins and outs, it really did open quite a few doors. So.
Awesome. Thank you for that, Matt. I'm going to paste the other one in here. There's a couple on this one. I'm just curious to hear about your background.
I think a lot of it was just because as a designer, I come from a purely art background, and when I was in interactive advertising and being a motion designer, when you have a title like that, for some reason everyone thinks that you can just deal with everything. So the producers worked about budgeting and schedules. The art directors worked about creating the look of whatever project it is that you're working on. And then the developers mostly focused on like the code, and then as a motion designer you did everything in between. So whether or not that was like editing 360 video, compositing, sound editing, creating all the CG that goes into any like documentaries, things like that, to even technical stuff. Again, like what I found myself doing later on, which was setting up motion capture equipment and even just like dipping my toes into some development here and there. So I'm pretty comfortable with just having like a wide skill set. But one of the things I always just felt that held me back personally was just the fact that I wasn't afraid of getting technical, but I just did not know how to code. Again, being an artist from the beginning, coding was always like one of those things that you just never looked at. You're just like, ew, why would you want to go and do that? But I actually find that it's actually really quite liberating. I wouldn't say that I'm an expert coder by any means, but I certainly love learning it, and I get excited when I've tried out something new that even seems kind of basic in a lot of ways, but it's a new challenge for me to go and use some sort of new coding technique, or kind of get a tool to work through, like a database and all this sort of stuff. So it's liberating. So yeah, and like I said, I have an active imagination as well. So I have all sorts of ideas that I wanted to go and explore, and I kept wanting to go and do, but I didn't want to have to go and necessarily rely on a developer friend or whoever to kind of come on board and work for free, for instance. I wanted the idea I want to be able to actually go and execute my own ideas, even if it's not necessarily the most well polished or thought out bit of development. That just comes with time and experience, but you got to start somewhere. And so that's basically how I chose to actually go and do it. So, and take that leap.
Amazing. I've got just two more questions for you here. I'm going to paste one in the chat as well. Curious to hear about the hiring process and how you got started.
Yeah, you know what? Like, this is something that I think I'm fortunate that again, through my experience, I've just as an artist, you kind of just learn to actually go and create portfolios and websites and things like that to go and showcase your work. And especially with the XR industry, it is something that is still just, people don't understand. People don't have that direct experience with. So when you say, you work on XR projects, they're still just like, what does that even mean? Then the must-have skills, yeah, it's must-have skills, I would say, is like definitely like a good understanding of coding. I would say that coding is definitely a must. I would say it's really just dependent on like what a student who's like looking to get into it really wants to get out of it. Like, what is your reason for exploring this technology? If you come from, like I said, like an engineering background, for instance, and you really see an opportunity there to go and say, like, okay, here's like a new mechanical device for this particular project that I really want to go and like sell people on, but it's so hard to go and communicate that. You would look at it completely differently than, say, somebody who's like a medical illustrator who really wants to go and really go and use it as use, say, like a VR headset to really get into the body that they themselves have helped to sculpt and define and that sort of thing. So I would say that the must-have skills would be definitely having like a broad set of skills. So regardless of whichever avenue you're approaching it from, being able to know at least some of the basics in terms of coding it out. And then also having some familiarity with 3D applications always helps. People need to navigate an actual VR scene, and there's different components that that play into that. So whether it's like a 2D UI system to access menus, whether you're going to have different components that you need to kind of go and pick up and place into one another. And again, the thing that I find is actually like a really important thing to keep in mind is whatever angle that you are approaching the technology from and trying to get into and learn and utilize the technology is learning how to actually go and tell that story. So going back to like how you can use this technology and how can you promote yourself, making videos of the experience that you're creating, but also telling the story around that. What is an audience who is supposed to be looking at this video and understand what's going on? They need to be spoon-fed every little bit of information around the context of why they're looking at it. It's kind of like the same reasons why, some movies out there are more compelling than others, because they've actually spent the time to tell the story of the characters and their journey. So your VR experience is a character in so many ways. So take the time to go and just like a couple of little shots here and there to show like you putting on a headset and entering a virtual world where you're about to go through, some sort of mechanic of locomotion or some sort of, journey that you want the audience to go and take out of it. Learning to communicate that.
Amazing. Yeah, it's so true how likening the analogy to a movie it's incredible what it can do to the output and how you tell that story. That's awesome. That's great stuff. Last question for you here, Matt.
It's so hard to tell, because I think one of the things that makes working with XR so frustrating is that there's constantly new changes and new updates and new headsets and new technology that makes something obsolete. Yeah, even as early as like a year ago. So it does sometimes get a little overwhelming of like what to look forward to when what you were looking forward to is like already out of date. But I would say that I still love I still love the idea of using XR in connection with like IoT devices. Being able to train people or use headsets to essentially take over, a command and control center, for instance. I love the idea of kind of, combining, a perspective of like a video game, but you're not controlling NPC players or units of just like as a part of your army, but it's being connected to say, I'm controlling an emergency response from this, virtual bird's eye view of a scene going down in a city, for instance. Like I said, this is where my imagination just takes off. But like I said, the technology is always constantly changing. It's always being updated, and like I said, it evolves so quickly. But the thing that also needs to catch up is people's imaginations on how to actually go and use it. And so that's the kind of thing that I look forward more to. I've seen lots of different video games and people trying out different mechanics, and sometimes it falls flat on its face, and sometimes it defines a whole new style of gaming in VR. But it's the ideas that I actually really get excited about, and people communicating that.
Amazing. Amazing. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Matt, for sharing your insight. We really appreciate it. We're going to have you back on in the Q&A session, probably in 15 to 20 minutes, if I had to guess. So really appreciate you taking the time, and I'm sure the audience thanks you for sharing as well. But for now, let's move on, and we will.
I'm assuming that the 2 thumbs up was like thanks for we'll show up on QA.
That's exactly what it means. Glad we can communicate.
So sorry about the inconvenience, guys.
That's okay. Thanks, Matt. Awesome. I've never had to deal with that on a webinar before, everyone. I hope that was okay and that the chat system worked out for you guys. Anyways, moving on. As you heard from both Jerry and from Matt, there are all kinds of opportunities to shape a career in the XR industry, and we would love to help you get started on that journey or to continue that journey. No matter what your long-term ambitions are, we can help. As you can see here on screen, we've had students seek to transition their career, start a new business, bring this technology back to their current work environment, or simply build an app because they're passionate about new and emerging technologies. On screen are examples of students ending up sort of in different places after taking our 10-week program. Mike Oakes actually recently started just a few months ago as a software energy at Unity. So he's now building the tool that we all love and love to teach. Jennifer Swan, she's actually comes from a finance background. She's a project manager. She took our course last summer and just received a scholarship from Oculus to continue her learning there at the Oculus Launchpad program with the prototype that we helped her build in our program. And of course, I don't have to say it, you just met Matt and heard about his story as well. Now, moving on, given that the XR industry is growing at such a rapid pace, all kinds of companies from around the world are exploring it and investing in it. These are some of the companies that we've had the pleasure of working with over these past few years, and it's incredible. It really blows my mind and super exciting to see all of the amazing projects that they're building, investing in, working on, and the imagination piece that Matt was just describing there at the end of his bit really applies to how the industry is transforming over the years. So moving on, let's talk about the skills needed to become an XR professional one day, if indeed that's what you're hoping to do. They're seeking to build professional applications. These are the skills that those companies are looking for. They're seeking to build professional application that require skills like these, which is exactly why we teach the way that we do and why we cover these skills in our programs. Now, moving on, let's take a step back here and talk about the landscape, the opportunity, and how you can get involved. We've really stressed that the XR development, we've really stressed that XR development and XR design remain the two most in-demand jobs out there, the two most sought out sort of skill sets that people look for. But I think it's really important to note that these are certainly not the only kind of jobs related to the XR industry generally. There really is a diverse range out there in terms of opportunities, and each one is really vital to the successful implementation or creation of an XR application. Again, let's take a step back though. Let's talk about Unity for a second. What is it? Why is it relevant? Why do we teach it? Well, it's a 3D development engine used to build games, simulations, and experiences in both 2D and in 3D. Meaning AR, VR, and mixed reality as well. Today, it's the world leader in VR content creation. And around the world, about 60% of its VR content is produced and powered by Unity. But let's talk about the industry. We were talking about skill sets. We were talking about the advantage of design over development or sort of vice versa. It really pays to have skills in the XR industry in an emerging field. I've already mentioned 60% of the world's content is made using Unity. We've even more recently seen that Oculus, which is obviously merged with Facebook, they sold more Oculus Quest 2s in 8 weeks than they did for the entire first generation of the Quest. That was mind-blowing. I couldn't believe that when I read that. And Burning Glass Technologies, which is a sort of world-renowned research firm in the technology space, is saying that in the year 2019 alone, it's a little bit outdated now, but there was a 600% demand growth in Unity and Unreal skills. It results in more money, more job growth, all kinds of opportunity with all of the unfulfilled programming jobs across the US alone, there really never has been a better time to get started in the XR space. So let's bring this back to CircuitStream. How do we help? How do we get started? What are our academic offerings? This is where we can talk about the programs that we offer and how we might be able to help you in your journey. So our two main courses, obviously today we're talking about the XR Development with Unity program. It's our flagship course. It's where it all started for us back in 2015. It's taught over 10 weeks, approximately every 2.5 months. It includes 40 hours of live education, and our next cohort actually gets started on February the 15th. Now, more recently, we've created a similarly structured course called the Xr Project Accelerator. This is a course designed to teach more advanced programming interaction skills, as well as to help you take an existing VR or AR prototype to the next level. If you want to build a business around this program, if you want to continue your learning, if you want to convince your company that they should invest in this technology on a grander scale, this is the program where you can really optimize, polish, and distribute your prototype much, much more meaningfully. So let's hone in on the 10-week course, for example, now the XR Development with Unity course. So if we could flip the slide there just once ahead, perfect. So if you're just getting started out in VR and AR, in scripting with the C# language, or even Unity more generally, this is the program that we would recommend to you. It teaches the fundamental skills and best practices that we think every developer or designer should have when working on an AR or VR application. By the end of the course, students will have the ability to prototype a new application from scratch, whether in AR or in VR or both. In addition to the lessons themselves, which occur twice weekly, we pair each student with an expert like Jerry so that they can meet with them one-to-one every week to work on a personal project. This allows our students to work on something that they're passionate about and to have a working prototype by the end of the course. Each student also gets our certificate of completion, which is recognized by Unity, as well as lifetime access to both the lesson recordings and our network of students and partners via our community channels. So what can you expect to learn? What are the learning outcomes? Well, you can definitely build your own XR idea from scratch. We remain very agnostic, whether it's AR or VR, Oculus or HTC, HoloLens or Magic Leap. We can teach you how to develop for different XR platforms or how to manage different XR projects. Indeed, too, when Matt was discussing the benefit of design versus develop, where's the sweet spot in terms of skill sets? We really also believe that teaching you the design fundamentals are super, super beneficial in creating a well-rounded skill set. And of course, the retroactive value of learning with us is that you can leverage our industry, our network, to help you get noticed and launch and accelerate your career in the XR industry. Complementing our 10-week course, we've also created new shorter courses. We call these individual courses, short courses. These are programs that each cover more specific topics in XR development and XR design. Just like our 10-week course, these are all beginner friendly, and they're a great way to continue your learning with CircuitStream after the XR Development with Unity program. Each of these courses range from 3 to 5 weeks. They're all taught live and online. They're all recorded. You get the same access to our network, and these are a great complement to what we teach in the 10-week program. Here's a short list of the programs that we offer in this category. As you can see, we do focus on specific platforms, specific mediums, and specific use cases in these courses, which is why we feel that they're great to add on to what is taught in the 10-week program. Of course, you can take these courses as a standalone program, but we typically recommend that they're used as a complement to the 10-week program. So for example, you can see that we offer an Intro to XR Design course for folks either new to design skill sets entirely, or for folks coming from traditional 2D design backgrounds looking to make a transition to the XR industry. This program doesn't cover essential best practices in C# scripting, for example, but it will provide an excellent foundation for XR design principles, which again is exactly why we suggest that folks interested in a career in XR design, take this program after graduating from the 10-week class. Whereas the C# scripting course, on the other hand, is a really great prep program to take ahead of or during even the 10-week course. This is especially so for folks brand new to coding, or for folks looking to brush up on their scripting skills leading into the 10-week program. However, I would like to remind you, in these programs, no experience is required, so please, beginners have no fear. Regardless of your device, Mac, Windows, Android, iPhone, regardless of your headset, your head-mounted devices, we can help you, and we would love to help you. Okay, moving on. That's our academic portfolio. Let's talk about logistics. Let's talk about how to get started, if any of this is of interest to you and you're considering what we have to offer. So on screen, you're going to see our admissions team here. Obviously, you've already met me. I've been your host today, your moderator. But backstage, we do have Steph active in the chat today. Steph and I make up the admissions team, and we're here to support you on your XR educational journey. We're a little bit different than other companies in that we're extremely involved in the enrollment or continuing education process. We're here to help address any questions you might have about things like financial aid, your long-term learning goals, your specific project ideas, anything technical about Unity, your headset, mobile devices, and so on. This is a free service that we offer, so please don't hesitate to get in touch with either of us if you'd like to chat. You can certainly reach out to us directly via the website, or give us a call, send us an email, book some time to speak with us. If some of you, and I definitely recognize some names in the chat today, if you've already got our contact information. Okay, moving on. This is exciting. I really like this part. Starting this week, actually starting today, we are going to be offering a VR starter pack for folks that are brand new to the VR AR industry. And this sort of goes back to what I was saying about how we view each of our programs and how they relate to each other. So we're going to be offering a new bundle to anyone that enrolls in our 10-week XR Development with Unity program. For the price of admission, we're also going to enroll new students in the C# Scripting Fundamentals short course, and we'll send you a new Oculus Quest 2, of course, provided that Oculus ships to your company. Given that our short courses are such a great complement to the 10-week course, we've also created a Starter Pack Plus, which essentially is includes the same items as the Starter Pack, but what it also gets you is 50% off of one of the remaining 3 short courses of your choosing. Now, it wouldn't be fair to offer a starter pack without also offering a more advanced bundle for folks considering the Xr Project Accelerator course. So we've created a bundle around this program as well, and it has the exact same structure as the starter pack, just of course covering the accelerator program. Here we'll also enroll you into our C# scripting course and mail you a Quest 2 with the same option to add on a short course for 50% off. Now, both of these bundle options, all of our courses have the options for payment plans. So you can choose to enroll by paying in full or on one of a 3, 6, or 12-month payment plan. In short, you can choose whatever is most convenient for you, and we can help you facilitate that process. If you'd like any more information on any of the programs we discussed here today, please visit our learning page on the website. There, you can download a course syllabus, submit an application, or get in touch with a member of our admissions team. And then last thing that I want to mention while we're here talking, team training. This is something that we hadn't considered or discussed previously. But effectively, if you're an educator at an educational institution or an organization looking to make an investment into your workforce to have them upskill and learn more about how your organization can integrate with XR, we would love to connect with you to talk about the ways that XR might benefit your organization long term. Here, we can talk about creating a customized training program designed to meet your specific needs. Again, if this is of any interest to you or your organization, please don't hesitate to reach out and have a conversation with us, as we would love to connect. Okay. There's been tons of questions. I can totally see that in the questions tab here. So what I'd like to do at this time is invite both Matt and Jerry back on stage here so that we can go over and address some of the questions that went unanswered throughout the presentation.
Oh, and I think I have audio.
Matt, you can hear us this time?
Yeah, oh my God, yeah, I solved it. Hey.
Hey, great to see you. Great to see you. Oh, this is awesome. This is awesome. Okay, folks, I think what we'll do here is I'll leave it up to you guys. You can answer the questions however you like. I'll start a live answer so that the question pops up on screen. But in an ideal world, I'd love to hear from both of you on each of these questions. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to start from the bottom. I was going to say, ideally, I would love to hear your thoughts and make this about your, what you think about these particular questions. But Maggie asks about my experience with the Raptors. Did I get to play with Kawhi Leonard? No, I didn't, unfortunately. I wish. I probably wouldn't be tall enough to even shake his hand. So, no, I didn't get the chance to play with Kawhi Leonard, but it was an exhilarating year. So thanks for that one, Maggie. Super appreciate it. Josh asks a great question here. What skills do you need for XR? Of course, we've talked about this in depth. This question came near the beginning of the presentation. But I'll leave this to both of you guys. Jerry, you're more of a developer. Matt, you're obviously a designer. Is there some common ground here? Like, are there some definitive skills that you think that would be needed regardless of your interest?
Go ahead.
Oh, sure. No. You go. I already spoke, so.
Okay, so that's a tricky question because XR is like there's a lot under XR in different careers. So I think it depends a lot on what to plan. Like if you want to be an XR developer, maybe you need to have more knowledge of programming, mathematics, physics, something like that. If you're more inclined to the design path, for example, you probably need to know a lot more about human factors like interaction design, how to observe, how to solve problems with VR. So I think it depends a lot, but if I would find like a common ground, I think that you definitely need to have like first thing, it doesn't matter what the career we want to pursue in the XR world space. I would say you need to know a little bit of design. Like you need to know what is good, what works and what doesn't work. Because even though you're just like developing a game or something, you want to focus on programming, you need to know what techniques you want to apply in there, like what you need to optimize, what type of locomotion you're going to be using, for example. And if you don't know what gives people, for example, motion sickness, what like feels better and those kind of things, you won't be able to develop well. So that's like the foundation, I would say. And a little bit of scripting as well, so you can express your ideas in VR. Like you can write a little prototype. As I said, it's quite hard to express design ideas for VR and even AR in a piece of paper. Like people are not going to be able to understand fully what we want. So like a little bit of design and a little bit of programming, it's like the basis. But then after that, it depends a lot on what the career you're planning. Do you have a different view on that, Matt?
No, I totally agree. Because it is such a XR is still very much in its like infancy. It doesn't exactly have those like super well defined rules that you'll see in like specific industries like film production, VFX, video games, what have you. So my guess is that most students would probably either be like applying this to their current jobs or are going to be looking at studios that actually provide this as like a full-time service. And depending on if you're somebody who is leaning more towards like the design side versus the coding side, definitely get into coding. Definitely understand coding. You don't have to be an absolute like coding master at it, but at least being able enough to say, look at some code, try to like understand like what's going on with it, how to even debug it is definitely something that is really, really helpful. Being able to kind of just know generally how things work and plug in, so you can still at least be an effective team member, and you're not like holding up somebody by saying like, I don't know any of this because I don't code. So like I said, you don't have to be an absolute master, but at least being able to kind of just know enough to like understand generally like what's going on.
Right.
And then from a design perspective, if you're looking at specific, say, like design software, like Adobe Creative Cloud, being able to communicate just general ideas through like creating like images through Illustrator, creating UI through Illustrator. I know that Maggie was talking about user interface. That's how I kind of create most of my stuff, is just creating vector art and then converting that over. Keeping it simple, but you still need some design tools in order to actually go and communicate your ideas. Again, being a little bit of like a UX UI designer is hugely beneficial. And then anything beyond that, like I said, communicating the story. So if you have to communicate it through a video, pick up Premiere, learn to edit videos off of your phone through, any sort of, software like that. So, like I said, it's such a difficult like answer, or difficult question
Right.
to answer, because everyone approaches it like so differently and from completely different backgrounds, and are wanting to use it for different reasons. But like I said, any of like the common applications out there for doing any sort of like 2D or 3D design is definitely beneficial, as well as understanding the mechanics that drives the experience.
Right. So we can agree that regardless of your long-term ambition, having those best practices, those fundamental skill sets, both in terms of coding, the Unity tool itself, as well as some essential design principles, and maybe even some programs that support that design aspect, critical, absolutely critical.
Mhm.
Awesome. This question here, I'm going to address. So, David, great to see that you made it out. This is really quick, and I'm sorry if I didn't make this clear during the workshop, guys. With respect to the 10-week course, and all of our courses for that matter, everything is taught live. So we use Zoom to deliver an online session. Those recordings, the live sessions, the calendar invites, the project assets, the schedule, everything lives in an online learning portal that we set you up with each lesson. So what you'll have is 2 lessons per week in the 10-week class. They're 90 minutes apiece for a total of 3 hours. And each cohort, which happens approximately every 2 to 2.5 months, the next one beginning on February the 15th, we have 3 sessions that run each cohort. So at the time that you register, you pick the session that makes the most sense for your schedule. And then for the one-to-one appointment, which is the 4th hour every week, we pair you with an instructor that we feel is best suited to your long-term project goals, and leave it to you to book another 3rd recurring appointment with that instructor for each of the 10 weeks. And same thing, via the learning portal, you've got your Zoom call that you log into, you meet with your instructor, you plan a roadmap of how you're going to get from point A to point B based on your interests in the time that you've got with us. So I hope that's clear. Let me know in the chat if I can break that down any further. But that's how logistically the courses are run. Okay, I saw this question also from Maggie. This one's going to be for you specifically, Matt, because I think it's a great sort of launch point from what you were talking about with design principles and design fundamentals. So when you're taking on a new project, how do you actually go about creating the UI for these applications? What do you think about, and how do you execute on what you're thinking about?
I think the best way to answer that is not specifically just about the UI, but the UX. Jerry was touching on this point quite a bit, which is gaining the experience and putting people through as many like VR projects as I've had, especially when I was working in architecture, you realize that your audience, the people who are obviously participating in the VR experiences, in a lot of cases, unless they're hardcore gamers and they already have their own headsets, are going to feel super uncomfortable and are going to the shift between reality of being in the room or wherever they are when you put the headset on them to the actual virtual world is very disorienting, and it takes everybody some time to get used to. And I've seen it so many times where people's first reactions is to button mash each controller and all of that. So my approach to UI and UX is make it as absolutely as simple as possible. Because there's so many buttons on controllers, doesn't mean you should use every single one. And in fact, my idea in a lot of cases is to get rid of the controllers if you can, or at least keep it to one input. It's the same with the UI. If you can reduce the amount of UI that is needed for a user to actually go and participate in the experience with, keep it as simple as possible. And regarding, like, if you're talking about specifically how do I actually go and design it and everything, I just use like Illustrator for that. Like I said, I go through the process of just trying to think about like how simple can I make this thing to begin with, and then from there on I'll just go and take a look at like, okay, just typical sort of like fundamentals of like design stuff, and whether or not the design that I'm actually applying to the UI, is it simple and clear and easy to understand? Is it going to be comfortable for a user to actually go out and touch that menu? Or even better, is there even a need for that menu? Or can you go and communicate something through just like haptics or anything like that? So it's a communication tool. So you don't want to boggle down people and get them frustrated and confused by trying to just interact with it. So keep it as simple and light as possible.
Awesome. Thank you for that, Matt. Much appreciated. There's two here that I'm going to address just to reiterate what was covered. Richard, first of all, great to see you. Thank you for your question. I hope I answered this when I was going over our academic portfolio, but this is a great question. So do your short courses like C# scripting fundamentals and Quest development fundamentals complement your full courses, or is the material in the short courses covered already in the full course? When we were thinking these things up and when we were launching these, that was a question we got a lot, and justifiably so. I think with the exception of the C# short course, the other three are great to take after you've already done the 10-week course, or after you have the knowledge that you would gain from taking the 10-week course. The C# scripting fundamentals course, it's never a bad idea, as both Matt and Jerry have mentioned, to brush up on your fundamental skills in programming. It's always changing, the Unity interface is changing, and so practicing your scripts is always good. But this would be the program that we would recommend taking either before or near the very beginning of the 10-week course in conjunction with it. The C# content is covered in sort of lesser detail in the 10-week course, but we often hear, Steph and I, disproportionately, that coding is the thing that is the biggest friction point for most people. It's the thing that people are most scared of. They're the most sort of worried about, which is why we offer this program as a prep course leading into the 10-week course in that bundle. It's for that very reason. However, there's actually somebody who just started the more advanced Project Accelerator program with us this January. He decided to take that C# scripting course twice, actually, since last year, just to brush up on those fundamental skills. So it could go both ways. Whereas, and we talked about this a little bit, in the 10-week program, we remain pretty agnostic towards a particular headset or a particular medium or a particular platform. The short courses is a way for us to be able to get more narrow and get more specific in these programs that go beyond the one-to-one time that you get in the 10-week program. So hypothetically, if you were interested in LiDAR, Jerry, LiDAR mentioned Jerry mentioned LiDAR when he was talking about some of the skills. We could definitely help you build an application using these new sort of technical use cases in the 10-week program. But you might also be interested in building a VR application for the Oculus Quest. And so how you use that time is ultimately up to you. Whereas if you were to do the Starter Pack Plus, you could rest easy knowing that if you want to focus on LiDAR in the 10-week course, you can do the Quest program after and really get both with us. So great question. Thank you for sharing. I hope that makes it a little bit more clear. This is another one too. So Liam, I really appreciate this question as well. So this is about technical specifications. There was another question too from Clifford. We actually have a blog post, and it looks like my colleague Dayon responded to Clifford's question with this. We can paste this in the chat as well. We launched a blog post on this very subject, talking about the minimum specifications and everything like that. So we can paste that in the chat. Definitely take a look and you'll get your answer. Looking at this though, I can tell you, go with the Windows computer in this scenario. The Oculus Link cable, which is super, super powerful as you're iterating and play testing and troubleshooting your VR application in Unity. It allows you to plug in your device to Unity to your computer, but it doesn't integrate with Mac. So for that reason alone, go with the Windows device. But we can get that article I was referring to in the chat. Okay, moving on. Matt and Jerry, this is another good one. This is another good one for the both of you. Where was it? And this is a good one for a lot of reasons. So first of all, Charles, thank you for your question. Great to see you, and thank you for making it out. So, let's obviously answer the question first, but I want to get both of your thoughts on the value of certification, sort of exams and that type of thing. So Matt, as someone who's taken our course, and Jerry, as someone who's gone through the programmer certification, what do you guys think about preparing for these exams? How do you know when you're ready? Why did you make the decision to go through and after studying take the exam to get certified with Unity? Either one. Let's start with
okay. I actually never took the exam. It has been actually on my mind to go and do. I think part of the reason is because I think part of the reason is because when you're talking about being employable, your experience may vary differently than the goals of the company that you're either recruiting for or trying to get into, or you're speaking to, and their needs. And I feel like just as much as your experience is applicable, having an actual certification that like the basics of the program, or at least are like a master at least like one specific aspect, or however you want to go and take a look at it, is pretty beneficial. And if it's not just say for like the colleagues that you're going to be working with directly, it'll be for the recruiters who don't know, who don't know what Unity is. If they know that it's a thing that the company uses, and they might not know that like how well your experience fits into it. But if you actually approach it and have up on like your LinkedIn profile or on your website or wherever that you're, Unity certified, that is something that communicates very clearly to them that obviously they have the certification. Whether or not I think it's absolutely necessary to go and have one for your career moving forward, people learn all the time and get into very high positions in their careers by just educating themselves. I think it helps to get the certification in a lot of ways, not necessarily directly for the benefit of like for like the specific role, but it's for all the people outside the role who are supporting, the projects in the companies. So yeah, that's my thought on it. So
I'd like to hear your position too, Jerry, as somebody who has gone through it and has done it both as a programmer and as an instructor. Curious to hear what that preparation process was like. Because I think Matt raises a lot of good points there. It's almost like the value of the certification is in the eye of the beholder. But I'd be curious to hear your thoughts, Jerry.
Well, I partially agree with that. Like, I think that I totally agree with Matt. Like, not necessarily going to need a certification. It depends on the path they were taking and everything. But the industry is valuing the certification more and more because we have like lots of experienced developers out there. So the certification just makes sure that you went through like a controlled ambient and you demonstrated a couple of knowledge. So it's like one other way to assess your skills. Maybe not the best one. There are lots of other ones in there, but it's like basically if you have like 3 developers, they have more or less the same experience, and one of them have the certification. This one probably is gonna have like better opportunities. But regardless of the purpose of the certification, to the question, what remain to prepare for the UCAP? Well, actually, the UCAP is the associate level. It's like an entry level for people that they can get like entry level jobs in the industry using Unity. Our course prepares you like for most of the points. The associate programmer doesn't cover VR and AR, so that's why there it's a little bit off in there because we're focusing on AR and VR. Of course, in order to be able to build that, you need to learn the majority of the fundamentals. So we cover like 90% of what the exam objectives are. I have been working with a couple of students to prepare them for their certification, this certification specifically, and one of them, they took it, passed it already. So right now, the course is going to prepare you for the majority of it, and the one-on-one with the instructor can prepare you for the rest of it. Because one of the things that I always say is passing those certifications exam, it's basically like 70% knowing Unity and 30% knowing how to sit an exam. This is true for everything. Like if you're gonna go for an English exam, for example, you can be like a native. It doesn't mean that you're gonna take the maximum score in there just because you're a native speaker. So if you don't know how to take an exam, if you don't know how to control time, how to understand what the way the questions are posed in there, so this is like an important aspect of the certification. And yeah, we have been working with the students to prepare them. And I think like Unity is putting a lot of effort on making the certifications valid there. They have reorganized the certification pathway. And I think the industry is starting to understand how important it is because we have like Microsoft, IBM, Amazon, that they provide our certifications that are super, super valuable in the industry. And this is because they are more like mature. If you have like backend developing, it's been there for like 30 years. So now we have many people in there, and the certified ones, certified professionals, we know what they know. Like they were able to demonstrate a couple of skills, and it's not possible to pass certification by chance. Like it's hard. You need to be prepared. You need to know what you're doing. They use like advanced techniques to assess that you know what you're doing in there. Like they used item response theory and a couple of mathematical models to assess how well you went in there. So I think it's important, as Matt said, I don't think it's for everyone, but it's an important landmark to our careers. It's going to make you stand out. And regarding like my certifications, I'm a Unity certified instructor. So it just basically means that I demonstrate not only Unity knowledge, but also knowledge on how to teach and how to prepare material, how to prepare students. And that's a requirement. Like in order to become a Unity certified instructor, you need to be a certified professional. So it's like one level above the Unity certified associate. It's the Unity certified programmer. They have the Unity certified artist as well. This is for professional level. So after our course, with a little bit of help of our instructors, you can finally pass the associate level. And for the professional level, you need like at least 2 or 3 years of professional experience, because it's not only technical skills, it's how you apply that. So you need to have like worked in real companies and studios to have the knowledge that is accessed in the professional level. But yeah, not for everyone, but that's a good thing to try at least. Like it's gonna help you to stand out in the crowd.
I think that's the most important point right there, Jerry. Is it's certainly not going to hurt your chances of landing paid work. Whether or not it's for you is ultimately up to you. How you might go about preparing it. There's tons of resources. We can certainly help you, as Jerry's mentioned. But like Matt said, he's obviously been able to carve out a career for himself without it being necessary. So really good discussion, guys. Really appreciate that. Maggie had one question here that I want to answer quickly as well. So how long will we be offering the starter bundles? As far as I know, I think it's a new part of the program, so I don't see them going away anytime soon, especially if they're well received. As far as financial assistance go, Maggie, let's take this conversation offline. I think let's you and I have a chat, and we can see sort of what options are there and work together to find a good solution. So I wanted to make sure to call that out. Kristen had 2 questions here. I'm going to show one, but read out the other one as well. First of all, Kristen, great to see you. Thanks for joining. This, I think, is a great question because it highlights what's taught in the curriculum of our program and then how we can expand upon that in the one-to-one appointments. So Kristen is asking, if I want to make my own assets for my XR project in Blender, does anyone on the team know about optimizing models for XR? Is that out of the scope of this course? And she also asked about multiplayer in VR as well. So Jerry, what are your thoughts here? I'm curious to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, so for this first question that is in the screen, actually 2 questions in there. If anyone in the team know about optimization models for XR, yeah, actually everyone in the team knows about it, and they can definitely help you in the one-on-ones, but that's not the focus of the course. So in the course, we're not going to be teaching you how to model, for example. That's a different career, that's a different pathway. We're going to be teaching you how to use the models that are already done in our application, but we're going to be touching on optimization concepts. So in the end of the course, we have optimization session where we're going to be talking about how to profile our application, to know if there are too many vertices in there, if the memory is going to be a problem, frame rates, all those things. So yeah, you're going to be learning like the basics of optimization, but not how to tackle that in the Blender, for example. So that's out of the scope of this course, but you can have that kind of help during the one-on-ones. For the multiplayer is the same. Like we don't cover multiplayer at this point in the 10 weeks course. But I have lots of students that are interested in multiplayer, and they are actually building multiplayer applications. So in the one-on-one, we can definitely help with that. So if you want to have multiplayer in your application, you need to dedicate some time to that. That's like usually complex, more complex than a single player application, but you have the support of the one-on-one instructor that can give you the resources, help you to debug that, and teach you the basic concept. So it's not in the core of the course, but you can develop that during the one-on-ones.
Awesome. Thank you, Jerry. Okay, team, we have exactly 2 minutes left. I was losing track of the time a little bit here. We're about to run over. So there was one more question. And if you guys have any last minute questions, please feel to toss them into the questions tab or in the chat. I want to make sure that you get as much information as possible out of these info sessions here. So Sam has a question here. I think I want to address this one really quickly because it's exactly as Jerry was just saying. We don't know much about the new Apple headset that was just announced. Super excited about that, by the way. But this is another example of what we're teaching in the course is fundamentals, how you use and how you apply that and what you build with that. Limitless. You can build for any headset in any medium, and we can help you in the course. So I'm quite sure that we would be able to work this one out here. So thank you for your question there, Sam. Anything else that catches your eyes, Jerry, Matt, in the questions tab, you can filter for not answered. I see Josh is asking, a couple questions about how to get in touch with us. So on our website, there is a live chat option. Some of you in the audience have probably already been in contact with either Steph or myself. So feel free to send us an email if you've got our contact directly. I'm actually going to type my email in the chat at the moment, and I'll type Steph's as well, as either of us are more than happy to connect if anybody has questions. So send us an email, give us a phone call, anything like that, or just go to the website. There is a live chat agent there. You can book meetings with us. We're able to be found is what I'm trying to say. But again, let's try and see if there's anything else. Jerry, Matt, is there anything in the questions tab that catches your eye before we wrap up?
Maggie also asked a little while ago about, she's transferring over from software testing and what resources are available for people who don't necessarily or can't necessarily afford full-blown like headsets and things like that. Honestly, it's really dependent on what you want to go and create. But if you're kind of very open-ended with exploring the technology, remember XR is a pretty it's an umbrella term, really. It basically encompasses all sorts of different technologies. And when I was taking the course, we were using everything from a Vive Pro headset to even just running AR experiences off of your cell phone. So it can be very affordable. And not only that, but especially with the Quest 2 being as cheap as it is, you can take a look at that. You don't necessarily need a full-blown gaming rig and the craziest GPU out there to go and run, or in order to actually go as a gateway into this sort of technology. You can use pretty minimal spec stuff, especially if you're just getting into it. And then once you actually start to dive in, and as you start to get a little bit more familiar with it, and in Unity and everything, then explore what the next options are.
Awesome. I totally missed this one, Matt. This one was for you, Kyle Brown in the audience. So first of all, Kyle, incredible name, absolutely spot on. You should thank your parents for that. You had a great question here. So Matt, this one's for you. So what did IBI require as far as architectural backgrounds go to work there, especially in your capacity? What was your role like? What was your day-to-day like? Kyle's curious.
So admittedly, this was like a very strange role because they didn't even know. It was a brand new position. The company at that time was announcing a pivot towards just technology. And so they were looking for somebody who had experience dealing with XR technology. And so part of the role, it's very strange, but in the interview process, they were actually telling me that they were hoping that I would be able to go and answer that for them, what was required of the role. It was definitely a big learning curve for me because I had to kind of get familiar with kind of like the architectural visualization process. Like I said, on a daily basis, I was constantly giving presentations and demos of XR technology to all sorts of different people from like the government, people from property development, all sorts of things. I think the biggest thing was really just to kind of go and communicate what the technology could mean for them,
right?
Which was a big part of it. Part of the reason why I got out of it too is because I was doing more sales work than I was actually doing any sort of development work after a while, which was okay, sure. But like other than that, yeah, like I said, it was all just kind of very much trial and error. Like it started off very much doing just kind of like simple walkthroughs of like interior spaces. And while I was, and this is to kind of like the point of the coursework, that was my experience going through the program. One of the most meaningful projects that I worked on was actually through the one-on-one sessions that I had with my instructor, and a big part of it was dealing with change management, and very much in the same sort of realm as like simulators and that sort of thing that it seems like a lot of your guys' students are very much developing. But this was for a major transit hub that was under construction here in Toronto. And they were approaching us to basically go and create a bus simulator for the new bus terminal because it was, yeah, it was completely different than what a lot of drivers were used to dealing with the old terminal here. But decided to go in to take the course at the same time, and while this project kind of fell on my lap, and that's kind of what I went and focused on during my one-on-one sessions. And it was because of that rudimentary simulator that I put together that I presented it in front of the transit authorities here, which ultimately won us the contract to go and build the simulator for them. So yeah, I would say I'm always a component of just having an imagination, because everything else is a tool that if you dedicate enough time and energy into, you'll learn it. It's the imagination which is the hard thing to go and and teach.
Can't teach
so
that.
Yeah, so that's why I always say, like, I love the technology and everything, but be creative, come up with the ideas, and let the technology serve that. So whatever sort of program you need to learn, whatever sort of hardware you need to pick up, you'll hustle and make it work, but serve the purpose of the idea of the concept. So
very cool. Yeah, the good old TTC for any Toronto residents in the chat. The classic. Good for you for dealing with that, Matt. I would be. I'm just kidding. Of course, I'm kidding. So two final questions here in the chat. So Kristen, are there any apps on the Steam VR or Oculus store that were developed from students in this course that we can check out? That's a great question. Off the top of my head, I don't know. I know that Oculus in particular is very particular about what gets posted in there. I have heard that many of our students do side launch things into Steam VR. There are tons of games. I know, Matt, you were just describing on your portfolio, your website. Actually, maybe it'd be helpful, Matt. Can you share your portfolio in our chat, the website, so that Christian can go take a look to see what type of things have been built. The other thing I would like to say, Kristen, as a more tangible offer of assistance here, on our website, I'm just pasting it into our chat right now. These are a collection of student stories, people who have taken their course, our course, pardon me, where they've come from, what they built, where they are now. If you're considering this program, definitely worth reading. There's all kinds of really interesting sort of stories there. Oh, and thank you, Dayon, as well. So Jason Jaslow, who took our course, who's actually one of the stories. There you can see some of what he's built. Josh as well. I see that Jerry answered your question in our chat. I didn't actually see the Riot Games experience that was built in Unreal that you were talking about, but I can see that you and Steph have connected. I would recommend getting in touch there. We can take that offline. So Kristen, I hope that helps. I hope that answers your question. We are 10 minutes over time here. So I think we are gonna wrap this thing up here. But to everyone who's still in the audience, I really appreciate you guys coming out today. Great to connect with you all. I hope that you found value in the things that we were sharing. Jerry, Matt, once again, I really, really appreciate the both of you taking time and going over time. I'll own that one. But I really appreciate it from both of you. To everybody who remains in the audience, definitely get in touch with us. We're here to help. We would love to help you launch and accelerate your interest in your education in the XR industry. But for now, everybody stay safe. Happy Wednesday afternoon, evening, morning, wherever you are in the world. Much appreciated, and we'll see you again soon.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Bye.
Have a good one.